Chapter 1. I learned how to bake before I learned how to trust people. That sounds dramatic, but it is true. My mother worked 2 jobs when I was growing up, and our apartment in Somerville was small enough that the smell of anything in the oven filled every room. When money was tight, which was most of the time, she made bread. Flour was cheap, yeast was patient. Warm dough made an ordinary kitchen feel safe. I started beside her on a wooden chair, pressing my fingers into soft dough and asking questions she did not always have the energy to answer. Why did bread rise? Why did sugar turn dark? Why did people leave when they promised they would stay? That last question came after my father moved out. My mother did not give me a complicated explanation. She wiped flour from my cheek and said, "Some people love the feeling of being needed, Natalie. They just do not know how to do the work of being dependable." I remembered that sentence for the rest of my life. By 16, I was selling cupcakes to neighbors. By 22, I had a culinary degree, a mountain of student loans, and a job in a hotel kitchen where the executive chef communicated mostly by shouting. I stayed because I was good. I stayed because every finished dessert felt like proof that patience could turn separate ingredients into something whole. At 30, I opened Bluebird and Rye, a bakery near Boston Public Garden. The first year nearly destroyed me. I slept 4 hours a night. I knew the price of butter in 3 different wholesale stores. I cried once because a refrigerator stopped working, and again because an elderly customer told me my cinnamon rolls tasted like the ones his wife used to make. The bakery survived. Then it grew. We became known for wedding cakes that looked elegant instead of impossible, for croissants that shattered properly, and for a dark chocolate tart that one local food critic described as unreasonably persuasive. I met Dr. Julian Mercer because of that tart. Massachusetts Children's Hospital was holding a fundraiser for a new pediatric cardiac wing. Bluebird and Rye had been hired to provide dessert. I arrived at the hotel ballroom 3 hours early, wearing black pants, kitchen clogs, and a white jacket with chocolate on one sleeve. Julian was standing beside the dessert table. I knew who he was before he introduced himself. His face had appeared in hospital newsletters and one glossy magazine article about young surgeons changing pediatric medicine. He was 36, dark-haired, gray-eyed, and too composed for a room where everyone else was rushing. He looked at the tart in front of him. Then he looked at me. "Are these guarded?" he asked. "From children, no. From cardiothoracic surgeons, absolutely." His mouth twitched. "That seems discriminatory." "It is based on years of observation. Doctors steal food before events begin." "That is a serious accusation." "I have evidence." He glanced at the small plate in his hand. A bite of tart was already missing. "Then I should probably retain counsel." I laughed. That was the beginning. Julian did not overwhelm me with flowers or grand gestures. He came to the bakery after his shifts and sat at the corner table with coffee while I finished paperwork. He remembered the names of my employees. He washed dishes when a busser called in sick. He listened when I talked about food costs, broken mixers, and brides who changed their minds 3 days before a wedding. He was not perfect. He worked too much. He forgot to eat. He believed every problem could be solved by staying calm long enough to find the next correct step. But he was dependable. That mattered more to me than charm. My best friend, Paige Monroe, approved of him immediately. Paige and I had known each other since 7th grade. She was fearless where I was cautious, polished where I was practical, and always ready to defend me before I knew I needed defending. She helped me name the bakery. She stood beside me when I signed the lease. She was my maid of honor when Julian and I married 2 years after we met. At the wedding, Paige raised a glass and said, "Natalie spent her whole life taking care of everyone else. Julian is the first man I have trusted to take care of her." I cried. Julian kissed my temple. For 5 years, I believed Paige had been right. Our marriage was busy, imperfect, and real. Julian spent long hours in operating rooms. I spent early mornings at the bakery. Sometimes we passed each other in the kitchen at 5, me leaving with flour on my coat, and him coming home with exhaustion in his eyes. Still, we made room for each other. Tuesday dinner, no phones. One weekend away every spring. Coffee together, whenever our schedules allowed. We did not have children yet. We had talked about it, but Julian wanted one more year to finish a research project, and I wanted the bakery's second location to become stable. We thought we had time. We thought our marriage was protected by honesty. We thought the people closest to us wanted us to be happy. I did not know that one of those beliefs was about to be tested. And I did not know the person who would test it had been standing beside me for most of my life. Chapter 2. Paige built her career by understanding what people wanted before they said it. She ran a boutique event and public relations company called Monroe House. Her clients included restaurants, medical foundations, private schools, and wealthy families who wanted charitable events to look effortless. Nothing around Paige was ever effortless. She worked harder than anyone I knew. She remembered names, birthdays, allergies, old arguments, and which donor preferred sparkling water without ice. She could walk into a ballroom with a broken sound system and a missing keynote speaker, then smile as if everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. That skill made her valuable to Massachusetts Children's Hospital. 3 years after my wedding, Monroe House won the contract to organize the hospital's major fundraising events. Suddenly, Paige and Julian were in the same rooms more often. At first, I loved it. The two people I trusted most could help each other. Paige made sure Julian's speeches ended on time. Julian introduced her to donors who later hired her privately. When the hospital foundation planned a gala honoring his surgical team, Paige handled every detail. She joked that she knew his schedule better than I did. I laughed because it was nearly true. Julian's life was organized in blocks of surgeries, consultations, rounds, emergencies, and research meetings. Paige received portions of his calendar for events. Sometimes she knew he would be in New York before he remembered to tell me. "Your husband is impossible," she said one afternoon at the bakery. "He approved a speech and then changed half of it at midnight." That sounds like him. He also refused the photographer I booked. That also sounds like him. Paige smiled and took a sip of coffee. He trusts you more than anyone, you know. Every time I ask what image he wants to project, he says he does not care, as long as you would recognize him. The comment warmed me. It also made me miss him. That year, Julian's schedule became brutal. 2 surgeons left the hospital, and he absorbed some of their cases. I opened the bakery's second location in Cambridge. We were both doing work we loved, but love did not make exhaustion harmless. We started canceling Tuesday dinners. We stopped taking spring trips. We still kissed goodbye. We still said I love you. But sometimes those words happened while one of us was looking for keys. Paige noticed. "You two need a vacation," she told me. "We need 8 more hours in every day." "No, you need to remember you are married." I bristled. "We remember." "Natalie, I am not criticizing you. I am worried." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I have watched you build everything from nothing. I do not want you to wake up one day and realize work took the best parts of your life." I thanked her. At the time, her concern felt loving. Later, I would replay that conversation and wonder when concern had changed into something darker. There were small moments I dismissed. Paige began texting Julian directly about hospital events. That was reasonable. She sent him restaurant recommendations when he traveled. That was thoughtful. She knew he hated lilies and preferred black coffee. She had known him for years. Once, at dinner, she corrected me about the date of his upcoming conference. "It is the 17th, not the 19th, she said. Julian looked up from his plate. "She is right. The keynote moved. I was going to tell you." Something in me tightened. Then I felt ashamed. Paige was my oldest friend. Julian was my husband. Suspicion toward either of them felt ugly. Another time, I arrived at a hospital fundraiser and found Paige fastening Julian's cufflink. The clasp had broken. They were standing close because she needed both hands. When they saw me, Paige stepped back immediately. "Your husband is incapable of dressing himself," she said. Julian held up his wrist. "In my defense, the cufflink is defective." I laughed. The moment passed. A month later, Paige asked to borrow our spare key. She said she wanted to leave a surprise anniversary gift at the house while Julian and I were out. I gave it to her without hesitation. The gift was a framed photograph from our wedding. She placed it in our bedroom. I hugged her when I saw it. I never asked how long she had been inside. The hospital gala honoring Julian took place in early October. I provided desserts. Paige managed the program. Julian gave a speech about a little girl whose heart he had repaired when she was 6 days old. At some point before the speech, he handed Paige his phone. He needed a video from the surgical unit displayed on the ballroom screens. The file was in a message from a resident, and the audiovisual team could not access it. "Can you deal with this?" he asked. Paige took the phone. "Unlock it." He entered his code and passed it back. Then a nurse called him away to speak with a patient's family. I saw the entire exchange. It meant nothing to me. Paige returned the phone 10 minutes later. The video played during Julian's speech. Everyone applauded. Afterward, the three of us stood together for photographs. Paige put one arm around me and one around Julian. The camera flashed. In the picture, we looked like family. That was the night she opened a door into my marriage. None of us understood it yet. Chapter 3. The day my marriage collapsed began with vanilla buttercream. A bride named Chloe had chosen a 5-tier cake decorated with sugar flowers and thin gold lines. Her wedding was being held at an estate outside the city, and I drove there to confirm the kitchen setup. I used my phone to photograph the loading entrance, refrigerator space, and narrow staircase our delivery team would have to manage. Then I placed the phone on a stainless steel counter while I measured the doorway. I left without it. I did not realize until I reached home. Julian was in the living room speaking with his younger sister, Rebecca. Their voices were low and serious. Rebecca's husband had lost his job, and she was frightened about their mortgage. I did not want to interrupt. Julian's phone was on the dresser in our bedroom, charging. We used each other's phones when necessary. There had never been rules about privacy because there had never been a reason for them. I picked it up to call the wedding venue. Before I could open the keypad, a notification appeared. It came from an app I did not recognize. Signal. The sender was Paige. The preview said, "Did you delete the photo from Tuesday?" For a second, I assumed it was related to the gala. Then another message arrived. I cannot stop thinking about the hotel. My thumb went cold against the screen. I stared at the words until they blurred. There are moments when the mind protects itself by refusing the obvious meaning of a sentence. I thought maybe the hotel was an event venue. Maybe the photograph involved a donor. Maybe there was a normal explanation. I opened the notification. The app did not ask for a password. A conversation appeared. At first, I saw only Paige's newest messages. "Did you delete the photo from Tuesday?" I cannot stop thinking about the hotel. Above them was a reply from Julian's account. I deleted it from my phone. I did not delete it from my head. My knees weakened. I sat on the edge of the bed. Then I scrolled. The conversation went back months. Some messages were ordinary. "You were incredible tonight. I hated watching you leave with her. She trusts us completely." Other messages were worse because they sounded intimate without being explicit. "I wore the blue dress because you said you liked it." Do not look at me like that in public. I nearly followed you into the elevator. Then came photographs. A hotel room with champagne on the table. A man's hand resting on white sheets. The hand wore a watch that looked like Julian's. Paige in a black dress, photographed in a mirror. Her face was visible. A man's shoulder appeared behind her, but not enough of him to identify. I pressed my fist to my mouth. My body reacted before my thoughts became clear. My stomach turned. My ears rang. My skin felt too tight. I kept scrolling. The messages created a history I had never known existed. They referred to dinners Julian had described as hospital meetings. They mentioned medical conference in Chicago. They joked about nearly being discovered at our house. One message from Julian's account said, "Natalie notices everything except what is directly in front of her." That sentence hurt more than the photographs. It sounded cruel. It sounded amused. It sounded like two people I loved had been standing together, watching me trust them and laughing. I read the conversation from the beginning twice. Then I started taking screenshots. I sent them to a new email account. My hands shook so badly that I mistyped the password 3 times. In the living room, Julian and Rebecca continued talking. I could hear concern in his voice. He sounded like the man I knew. That made everything worse. I found a message dated the night of our anniversary. I had been waiting for Julian at a restaurant. He arrived 40 minutes late and said an emergency consultation had kept him at the hospital. The message from his account read, "I can still smell your perfume on my shirt." Paige replied, "Then do not let your wife get too close." I remembered kissing him in the restaurant doorway. I remembered thinking he smelled unfamiliar. I had blamed hospital disinfectant. A sound came from the hall. I closed the app and placed the phone exactly where I had found it. Julian appeared in the doorway. "There you are," he said. "Rebecca is leaving. Are you okay?" I looked at him. His face was open, tired, familiar. I searched for guilt. I searched for panic. I found only concern. "I left my phone at the venue," I said. My voice sounded distant. "Use mine." "I already called. They found it." He stepped closer. "Natalie, you are pale." I moved away before he could touch me. "I have a migraine. Do you want me to get you something?" "No." The answer came too sharply. He stopped. "Did something happen?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to hold the phone in his face and demand that he explain every word. But my mother's warning lived inside me. Some people loved being needed, but did not know how to be dependable. I had spent 5 years believing Julian was different. If I confronted him, he could delete the evidence. He could call Paige. They could create explanations together. I needed to think before they knew I had seen anything. "I'm just tired," I said. He studied me for another moment. Then he nodded. "I will make tea." He left the room. I waited until I heard him in the kitchen. Then I opened the closet and pulled down a suitcase. Chapter 4. I packed without making decisions. Jeans. Sweaters. My passport. Medication. The blue folder that held the bakery's ownership documents. I moved through the bedroom like someone following emergency instructions in a language she barely understood. Do not stop. Do not cry loudly. Do not let him know. Julian called from downstairs that the tea was ready. I said I was taking a shower. The lie came easily, which frightened me. I waited until he went into his study for a video conference. Then I carried the suitcase down the back stairs and placed it in my car. I returned for my laptop, jewelry, and the wedding photograph Paige had left in our bedroom. I held the frame for several seconds. Paige stood beside me in pale blue, smiling as if my happiness belonged to her too. I left the photograph face down on the dresser. At 9:30, Julian knocked on the bathroom door. Natalie. I had been sitting on the closed toilet lid, staring at the tile. I am going to bed, he said. Do you need anything? No. Are you sure? Yes. His hand rested against the other side of the door. I could see the shadow of his feet beneath it. I love you, he said. My throat closed. I did not answer. After he walked away, I waited 40 minutes. Then I left. I drove to my mother's apartment in Somerville. She opened the door wearing an old robe and reading glasses. One look at my face ended every question except the necessary one. Are you safe? I nodded. She pulled me inside. I showed her the screenshots at the kitchen table where she had taught me to knead bread. She read slowly. Her expression changed from confusion to grief. Paige, she whispered. I nodded again. My mother covered her mouth. She had loved Paige almost like a second daughter. Have you spoken to Julian? No. Do you want to? No. That answer was true. I could not imagine listening to either of them explain. The next morning, I called a divorce attorney recommended by one of my bakery clients. Her name was Elaine Foster. She was calm, direct, and expensive. I showed her the screenshots. She did not react emotionally. Do you have access to joint accounts? She asked. Yes. Any children? No. Prenuptial agreement? No. Do you believe your husband could become violent? Never. The speed of my answer surprised me. Even then, even while I believed he had betrayed me, I did not fear him physically. Elaine advised me not to empty accounts or make public accusations. She prepared a formal notice of separation and began drafting the divorce petition. I turned off my location sharing. I blocked Julian's number. I blocked Paige too. By noon, Julian had called my mother 6 times. She did not answer. He came to the bakery. My manager, Rosa, told him I was not there. He looked terrified, she said over the phone. Do not tell him where I am. I will not, but Natalie, what happened? I cannot talk about it yet. That afternoon, Paige arrived at my mother's building. She rang the buzzer until my mother unplugged it. Then she stood on the sidewalk and called up toward the windows. Natalie, please, let me explain. I stayed away from the glass. Her voice broke. It is not what you think. That sentence made me furious. Nothing guilty people did was ever. What it looked like. I sent Elaine a message. Please tell both of them, all communication must go through you. The divorce papers were served 4 days later. Julian received them at the hospital after completing a 7-hour operation on a 9-year-old boy. I learned that detail much later. At the time, all I knew was that Elaine called me at 3:15. Your husband has been served, she said. I sat in the back office of the bakery, surrounded by invoices and sacks of flour. What happens now? His attorney will respond. He will fight it. Probably. My hands were cold. I want this finished. Elaine's voice softened. I understand, but finishing a marriage is a legal process. Surviving what happened to you is a different one. I thanked her and ended the call. 5 minutes later, the bakery's main line rang. Rosa answered. She looked toward my office. Then she covered the receiver. It is Julian. Tell him I am not here. He says he knows you are. My pulse began to race. Tell him to call Elaine. Rosa repeated the message. I heard Julian's voice through the receiver, louder now. Please tell my wife, I have no idea what she thinks I did. The words reached me clearly. I stood frozen behind the office door. Tell her, he continued, that whatever she saw is not real. I almost laughed. Not real. The messages were real enough to destroy my life. Rosa listened, then said, She does not want to speak with you. There was a pause. When Julian answered, his voice had changed. It was quieter. Then tell her I will prove it. The line went dead. I pressed both palms against my desk. I thought he meant he would prove the affair did not matter. I thought he would prove I had misunderstood. I did not realize he meant something far more literal. Chapter 5. Julian hired an attorney named Marcus Hale. Marcus sent Elaine a formal response, denying every allegation of adultery and requesting that the divorce proceedings pause for 30 days. Elaine read the letter aloud in her office. He states that he has never had a romantic or sexual relationship with Paige Monroe. He believes his electronic accounts were compromised. He is arranging an independent forensic examination of his devices. I stared at her. He thinks someone hacked him. That is what his attorney says. Paige is in the photographs. Yes. The messages are on his phone. Yes. This is ridiculous. Elaine folded the letter. It may be, but denial is common at this stage. I refused the pause. 2 days later, Julian appeared outside the bakery at 6 in the morning. He did not enter. He stood across the street in the rain, wearing a dark coat over hospital scrubs. Rosa noticed him first. Do you want me to call the police? I looked through the window. Julian's hair was wet. He held no flowers, no gift, no dramatic sign. He simply waited. I went outside because I did not want customers watching. You cannot come here. His face tightened when he saw me. I did not know how else to make you listen. Through the attorneys. Natalie, I did not write those messages. They were on your phone. I know. They came from your account. I know. There were photographs. I know what you saw. Marcus showed me copies. Rain moved between us in silver lines. Then stop insulting me by pretending it did not happen. I am not pretending. His voice broke on the last word. I had never heard that sound from him. I have spent 5 days examining dates, he said. One of those messages was sent while I was operating on Alina Park. Her surgery lasted 11 hours. My phone was in a locker. 40 people can confirm where I was. You could have sent it from another device. I did not. Then Paige invented a conversation with herself for months. He went still. The idea sounded impossible when spoken aloud. Maybe, he said. I shook my head. Why would she do that? I do not know. You expect me to believe my best friend created an affair because you found one date that gives you an alibi. No, I expect you to let experts examine the evidence. Experts you pay. Pain crossed his face. Choose your own. I will pay them or you can. I do not care. Just choose someone who has never met me. I wrapped my arms around myself. You had your phone in Chicago. Yes. The messages mention the hotel. I stayed at that hotel with 6 surgeons from the conference. Paige organized a donor dinner there. I never went to her room. There is a photograph of your watch on a bed. My watch was stolen from my locker at the hospital in March. I replaced it. I remembered him telling me the clasp had broken. Had he said stolen? I could not remember. You are changing details. No, you were dealing with the Cambridge opening. I did not want to bother you over a watch. I assumed I had lost it. Convenient. He closed his eyes. For a moment, the controlled surgeon disappeared. He looked like a man standing at the edge of something enormous. I understand why you believe it, he said. If I saw those messages on your phone, I do not know what I would believe. But Natalie, I swear to you, I did not touch her. I did not kiss her. I did not want her. There was no affair. I wanted to believe him so badly that it felt dangerous. That was why I could not. Go home, Julian. It does not feel like home without you. That is not my problem anymore. He flinched. I hated myself for noticing. I'm going to prove this, he said. Then prove it to the court. I turned toward the bakery. Natalie. I stopped but did not look back. Do not trust me because I am your husband, he said. Trust evidence. Even if the evidence destroys me, I will give you every device, every password, every location record, every hospital log. I have nothing to hide. I went inside without answering. That afternoon, Elaine called. Julian had signed consent forms allowing a forensic examiner full access to his current phone, old phones, laptop, cloud accounts, hospital access logs, vehicle location history, and credit card records. He had also asked that I select the examiner. Most guilty spouses do not volunteer this much data, Elaine said carefully. Some guilty people are confident they can control the result. That is possible. Do you believe him? She paused. I believe we should examine what he is offering. I chose a digital forensics company in New York with no connection to Julian, the hospital, or his family. Their lead examiner was a woman named Dr. Lena Ortiz. She had spent 12 years investigating corporate data theft and electronic impersonation. Our first meeting took place by video. She did not ask whether I wanted Julian to be innocent. She asked what I had seen. Then she said, messages can be real and still not have been written by the person whose name appears above them. I stared at the screen. How? Linked devices, compromised accounts, physical access, social engineering, we will not guess, we will reconstruct. For the first time since opening Signal, a small crack appeared in the certainty that had held me upright. I did not know whether hope was entering through it. Or fear. Chapter 6. Dr. Ortiz began with the dates. She asked Julian's attorney to provide a complete export of the Signal database from his phone. She requested operating system logs, installation records, account registration information, linked device history, and backups. Julian provided everything. Then she asked me for the screenshots I had taken. I sent the original files, not copies. For 10 days, I heard nothing. During that time, Paige sent a letter to my mother's apartment. My mother left it unopened on the table. The envelope had my name written in Paige's familiar handwriting. I looked at it every morning. On the 4th day, I tore it open. Natalie, I know you hate me, you should, but please understand that things between Julian and me became complicated. I never planned to hurt you. I tried to end it more than once. He kept coming back. I felt sick. The letter continued for 3 pages. Paige described an affair that had started after the hospital gala. She said Julian felt lonely. She said he believed I cared more about the bakery than our marriage. She said they had fallen into something neither of them expected. The details matched the messages. She mentioned Chicago. She mentioned my anniversary dinner. She mentioned the blue dress. At the end, she wrote, I am not asking you to forgive me. I am asking you not to blame yourself. You did nothing wrong. I wanted to tear the letter apart. Instead, I placed it in a plastic folder and delivered it to Elaine. This is an admission, I said. Elaine read it once. It is an admission by Paige. It does not prove Julian participated. Why would she confess to an affair that never happened? That is an excellent question. Dr. Ortiz called the next morning. She asked Elaine and me to come to New York. Julian and his attorney would attend separately. The meeting took place in a conference room with glass walls and no decoration except a screen. Julian was already there when I arrived. He stood as I entered. I looked away. Dr. Ortiz began without ceremony. The Signal application was installed on Dr. Mercer's phone at 8:42 p.m. on October 8th of last year. The hospital gala. A photograph of the event appeared on the screen. The timestamp showed Julian on stage at 8:44. The account was registered using his phone number, Dr. Ortiz continued. At 8:47, a desktop device was linked. The device identified itself as Monroe MacBook Pro. No one spoke. My heart began to pound. That could be any name, I said. Correct. Device names can be changed. We do not rely on the label alone. She displayed a technical diagram. The linked device remained active for 11 months. Most outgoing messages attributed to Dr. Mercer were created through that desktop connection, not through his phone. I looked at Julian. He was watching the screen, not me. How can you tell? Marcus asked. Signal maintains synchronization artifacts and message sequence information. The phone received the sent messages after they originated elsewhere. Would he see them? Elaine asked. If he opened the application, yes. But the application had notifications disabled, was removed from the home screen, and had no usage on the phone except during account creation and the day Mrs. Mercer discovered it. My mouth went dry. Dr. Ortiz showed the first impossible message. It had been sent from Julian's account at 2:16 p.m. on February 3rd. The text read, I wish I were in your bed instead of this meeting. At 2:16, Dr. Ortiz said, Dr. Mercer was in operating room 6 performing a valve reconstruction on a child. The procedure was recorded for training. He appears continuously on video from 11:08 a.m. until 5:31 p.m. A still image appeared. Julian stood over an operating table in a mask and cap. His personal phone was stored in locker 214, she continued. Hospital access records show no entry into the locker room during that period. The message originated from the linked desktop device at an IP address assigned to Monroe House Events. The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the table. No, I whispered. Dr. Ortiz did not respond to my emotion. She moved to the next example. A message sent while Julian was giving a live lecture in Toronto. Another sent while he and I were on a flight to Denver, with both phones in airplane mode. Another sent at 3:04 in the morning while Julian was asleep beside me and Paige was active on her home Wi-Fi. The pattern repeated. Linked desktop. Monroe House office network. Paige's apartment network. A hotel network used during one of her events. What about the replies from Paige? I asked. They came from her legitimate Signal account. And the photographs? We are still analyzing them. Some are original photographs. At least 2 have been altered. I could hear blood rushing in my ears. Why did the messages appear on his phone only when I saw them? They had been there, Dr. Ortiz said. The conversation was muted and placed in an archived folder. On the day of discovery, it was unarchived, and notifications were enabled remotely from the linked device. Paige had wanted me to see. The realization entered slowly. This had not been an accident. My forgotten phone had created an opportunity, but Paige had prepared the trap long before that day. Julian finally looked at me. There was no triumph in his face. Only grief. I told you, he said softly. I could not answer. Dr. Ortiz closed the presentation. This is not yet a complete report, but I can state with a high degree of confidence that Dr. Mercer did not author most of the messages attributed to him. The account was controlled primarily through a device connected to networks associated with Ms. Monroe. Elaine touched my arm. I pulled away because I thought I might fall apart if anyone was kind to me. I had left my husband. I had served him divorce papers at work. I had refused every explanation. And my best friend had written both sides of the betrayal that destroyed us. Or almost both sides. Because one question remained. Why? Chapter 7. Evidence did not arrive all at once. It came in pieces, each one removing another part of the story Paige had built. The photograph of Julian's watch on the hotel bed was real. The watch was his. But the image had been taken in Paige's apartment. Metadata placed the photograph there on March 12th, 2 days after Julian realized the watch was missing from his hospital locker. Security footage showed Paige entering the staff corridor that afternoon while organizing a donor tour. She had access because of her hospital contract. She entered the locker room area, carrying a garment bag. She left 9 minutes later. The mirror photograph of Paige in the black dress had been altered. The male shoulder behind her belonged to a stock image model. Dr. Ortiz's team found the original photograph online. The hotel room with champagne was not in Chicago. It was a suite at a Boston hotel where Paige had managed a corporate event. The room's distinctive brass lamp appeared in promotional photographs. The perfume on Julian's shirt after our anniversary dinner had a simpler explanation. Paige had hugged him at a hospital reception that evening. Security footage showed it. She held the embrace several seconds longer than necessary, then watched him walk away. I viewed the footage twice. Julian's arms remained at his sides. The letter Paige sent me was not proof of an affair. It was part of the fabrication. She had written it after I left, hoping to make the story irreversible. Dr. Ortiz traced the document file to Paige's laptop backup after a court order required her company to preserve devices related to suspected electronic fraud. The file's earlier drafts were worse than the final version. One paragraph had been revised 6 times. In the first draft, Paige wrote, "He told me you had stopped sleeping together." In another, she wrote, "He said you never wanted children." Both claims were false. She had removed them because she knew I could disprove them. She was not confessing. She was editing a believable lie. Julian did not contact me during the investigation. He respected the boundary I had demanded. That made his silence painful in a new way. I wanted him to call so I could apologize. I also feared hearing his voice. What could I say? I believed my best friend because she had manufactured evidence designed to be believed. That was true. It was also true that I had not given my husband one honest conversation before leaving. I had treated his denial as manipulation. I had looked at the man who had shared my life for 5 years and decided his calm face was proof of skillful lying. My mother tried to protect me from drowning in guilt. "You were attacked," she said. "Not physically, but deliberately. Paige knew your fears. She built a story that would hurt you in exactly the right places." I should have asked him. Maybe. I should have known. How? Because he was Julian. My mother sat beside me at the kitchen table. "Trust is not magic, Natalie. It cannot make false evidence disappear." But I promised to know him. You promised to love him. You did not promise to become impossible to deceive. I cried then. Not the silent, shocked tears from the first night. These tears came from relief, shame, anger, and grief tangled together. 2 weeks after the first forensic meeting, Elaine arranged a conversation with Julian. We met in her office. He looked thinner. There were shadows beneath his eyes. He remained standing until I sat. Then he took the chair across from me. "I am sorry," I said immediately. He closed his eyes. "Natalie." "No, please, I need to say it. I am sorry I left without asking. I am sorry I served you at the hospital. I am sorry I believed you could talk about me that way." His hands tightened together. The evidence was convincing. You still deserved a chance to speak. Would I have believed you if the positions were reversed? I looked at him. He stared down at his hands. "I keep asking myself that," he continued. "If I found months of messages on your phone and photographs of you with another man, would I listen calmly? I want to say yes. I do not know if that would be honest." "I hurt you." "Yes." The word was quiet. It landed harder than anger. "I woke up and you were gone," he said. "Your clothes were missing. Your ring was on the dresser. Then your attorney called. I did not even know what I was accused of until Marcus showed me the screenshots." Tears burned my eyes. I thought you and Paige would coordinate your stories. I understand. You should not have to understand. He finally looked at me. Understanding does not mean it did not hurt. I nodded. Do you still want the divorce? He asked. The question frightened me. Not because I wanted to say yes. Because I did not know whether proving innocence automatically repaired a marriage. No, I whispered, but I do not know how to come home and act as if this never happened. We cannot act as if it never happened. Then what do we do? He took a slow breath. We finish learning the truth. Then we decide whether we can build something after it. He did not reach for me. He did not demand forgiveness. He did not use his innocence as a weapon. That restraint reminded me of the man I had married. It also showed me how much distance now stood between us. Before we left, Julian placed my wedding ring on the table. I had left it on the dresser the night I moved out. I did not know whether to bring this, he said, but it belongs to you no matter what you decide. I picked it up. I did not put it on. Not yet. Chapter 8. Paige refused to cooperate voluntarily. Through her attorney, she claimed someone else had used her laptop and office network. She suggested a disgruntled former employee had framed both her and Julian. Dr. Ortiz dismantled that explanation. The linked signal device had been accessed with Paige's personal user account. The messages were sent during periods when security records showed her alone in her office. Draft photographs and edited images were stored in folders synced to her private cloud account. Still, Paige denied everything. Then she called my mother. She used a number we did not recognize. My mother answered while I was beside her. Please do not hang up, Paige said. I held out my hand for the phone. This is Natalie. Silence. Then a small breath. You finally decided to talk to me. Her voice sounded almost relieved. Why did you do it? I did not. Someone is twisting the evidence. Julian has resources. He can make anything look real. The expert was chosen by me. And paid by him. The messages came from your computer. My staff use my computer. The photographs were in your cloud account. People share files with me constantly. Her answers were ready. She had always been good in a crisis. You stole his watch, I said. The line went quiet. What? There is security footage. Then you know I was at the hospital for work. You entered the staff locker corridor. I was looking for a restroom. You have organized events there for 3 years. You know where every restroom is. Another silence. I heard something change in her breathing. Natalie, she said softly, you are letting him turn you against me. The old tone returned. The protective friend. The woman who had always told me she saw danger before I did. He is a surgeon with a perfect reputation, she continued. Of course he knows how to look innocent. Men like Julian do not lose. They hire people to rewrite reality. You rewrote reality. No. You wanted me to find the messages. No. You unarchived the conversation that day. That is not true. You knew I had left my phone at the estate. Paige stopped breathing. I had not known whether that last statement was true. I said it because Dr. Ortiz had discovered that the estate coordinator called Monroe House before calling the bakery. Paige's company was also organizing the wedding. Paige had learned I left my phone behind. Within 4 minutes, the signal conversation was unarchived. You saw the call from the venue, I said. You knew I would be home without my phone. You knew Julian was off that evening. You turned on the notifications. You cannot prove what I knew. The words came out sharp. Not denial. Defense. Why? I asked again. Paige laughed once. The sound was empty. You really want to know? Yes. Because you never saw what you had. My hand tightened around the phone. What does that mean? You complained constantly. The bakery, the hours, Julian's schedule. You acted as if your life was exhausting while everyone else watched you get everything. Her voice rose. A husband who adored you, a business people loved, a mother who would die for you. You walked around covered in flour, pretending you were still the struggling girl from Somerville. You had no idea how lucky you were. So you tried to destroy my marriage. I tried to make you see it. By making me believe my husband slept with you. He should have noticed me. The sentence came quietly. There it was. Not love. Entitlement. Did you think he would come to you after I left? Paige began to cry. He trusted me. He talked to me. He understood how much pressure I carried. He was polite to you. You do not know what was between us. There was nothing between you. There could have been. I closed my eyes. The cruelty of it was almost impossible to hold. She had not only wanted Julian. She had believed my happiness was evidence of unfairness. You were my sister, I whispered. I was always the person standing beside you, she snapped. At your graduation, at the bakery opening, at your wedding, I stood beside you while you got chosen again and again. I chose you too. Not the way he chose you. The line became quiet. My mother was crying beside me. I realized I was recording the call. Elaine had advised me to record any unexpected contact if state law allowed it. Massachusetts required consent from all parties, so before continuing I said, Paige, I am recording this conversation. Do you want to keep talking? She froze. Then she ended the call. The recording before the warning could not be used in court, but it gave Dr. Ortiz and the attorneys new leads. More importantly, it ended my doubt. Paige had done it. She had spent nearly a year manufacturing an affair because she envied my life and wanted my husband. Julian had not betrayed me, but someone I loved had. That evening, I drove to our house for the first time since leaving. Julian opened the door. Neither of us spoke. I stepped inside. The wedding photograph Paige had given us was gone. In its place stood an empty patch of wall. I threw it away, Julian said. I nodded. Then I crossed the room and wrapped my arms around him. For several seconds, he did not move. Then his arms closed around me. We held each other in the house she had tried to take from us. And we cried for everything her lie had broken. Chapter 9. I did not move home that night. Part of me wanted to. I wanted to put my clothes back in the closet, wear my ring, and sleep beside Julian until the weeks of fear became unreal. But relief can make people rush toward comfort before they understand their wounds. Julian understood that better than I did. Stay with your mother tonight, he said after we sat together for hours. We do not have to fix everything in one evening. Do you want me to stay? His eyes filled. Yes, more than anything. But I want you to come back because you feel safe, not because you feel guilty. Guilt had become its own kind of panic. I apologized constantly. In person. By text. During phone calls. Julian finally stopped me one afternoon. Natalie, I need you to hear me. You were deceived. I am hurt, but I do not want you punishing yourself every hour as proof that you love me. I abandoned you. You left a situation you believed was dangerous to your heart. I should have trusted you. You trusted evidence designed by someone who knew both of us. Why are you making excuses for me? Because the truth matters, even when I am angry. He was angry. That truth surfaced slowly. Julian had been suspended from certain hospital leadership duties while administrators reviewed the allegations and digital security breach. He remained allowed to operate, but rumors spread. Someone leaked the divorce filing. A medical blog published a vague story about a prominent surgeon accused of an affair with a hospital contractor. Parents of 2 patients requested different doctors. Julian's innocence did not instantly remove the stain. I hate that this touched your work, I said. Paige did that. I filed the papers. Because Paige created the evidence. I told Elaine about the hospital gala. Because you were trying to understand what happened. He never let me claim responsibility for Paige's choices. But he did not pretend my choices had caused no pain. We began marriage counseling with Dr. Miriam Cole, a therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma and false accusations. At our first session, she asked Julian what hurt most. He looked at the floor. That Natalie believed I could despise her, he said. I started crying. The messages were not just sexual, they were cruel. Whoever wrote them made me sound amused by her trust. I can understand believing I had an affair. I struggle with believing I would mock her. I covered my face. I am sorry. Dr. Cole stopped me gently. Apology is important, but we are going to understand before we repeat apologies. Natalie, what made those cruel messages believable? The answer came from a place deeper than Julian. My father left, I said. My mother spent years telling me it was not because I was unlovable. I believed her most days, but some part of me always expected the person I loved to decide I was ordinary and replaceable. Julian turned toward me. I had told him about my father many times. I had never explained the fear that remained. Paige knew that, I continued. She knew exactly what kind of betrayal I would believe. Dr. Cole nodded. And Julian, what made Natalie's departure so devastating beyond the accusation itself? He took a long time to answer. In surgery, if something goes wrong, we communicate, even when the truth is terrible. Especially then. I believed our marriage worked the same way. When she disappeared without one question, it felt as if the rules I trusted had never existed. That was the wound between us. Not adultery. Silence. Paige had used our separate fears against us. She knew I feared being replaced. She knew Julian believed communication could solve any crisis. She created evidence that made me flee before communication was possible. Dr. Cole gave us rules. No forced timeline for moving home. No using the forensic report to dismiss feelings. No demanding reassurance during work emergencies. One honest conversation every evening, even if it lasted only 10 minutes. We followed them. Some evenings were tender. Some were awkward. Some ended with one of us angry. I learned that Julian had felt humiliated when security officers collected his devices at the hospital. He learned that I had vomited after reading the messages and slept with the lights on for a week. I told him I had missed him every night. He admitted he had slept on my side of the bed because my pillow still smelled like my shampoo. 3 months after I left, I returned home for one weekend. I brought one suitcase. Julian had changed nothing in the bedroom. My slippers remained beside the bed. My half-read novel was still on the nightstand. I placed my wedding ring on my finger before going to sleep. Julian noticed. He did not comment. He only took my hand beneath the blanket and held it carefully. The next morning, we made coffee together. It was not a dramatic reunion. There were no speeches. There was sunlight on the counter, the hum of the refrigerator, and Julian asking whether I wanted toast. Ordinary life returned in small pieces. That was how I began to trust it again. Chapter 10. Paige's company collapsed before the criminal case was resolved. The hospital terminated Monroe House's contract. Other clients followed. Her employees learned that company devices and accounts had been used to impersonate Julian and fabricate private communications. Several resigned. Paige was charged with unlawful computer access, identity-related fraud, evidence fabrication, and theft connected to Julian's watch. The exact legal language changed as attorneys argued, but the facts remained. She had entered his phone without permission. She had created an account in his name. She had linked her computer to it. She had spent months sending messages designed to destroy a marriage. Her attorney proposed a settlement in the civil case. Paige would admit responsibility, surrender relevant devices, agree to a permanent no-contact order, and pay damages over time. Julian did not care about the money. I did not either. We wanted a written admission. Not for the public. For ourselves. The final statement was 8 pages long. Paige admitted that Julian had never participated in an affair with her. She admitted that he had never expressed romantic interest. She admitted creating the Signal account during the hospital gala after he handed her his unlocked phone. She admitted stealing the watch. She admitted altering photographs. She admitted timing the final notification after learning I had left my phone at the wedding venue. The motive section was shorter. I became resentful of Natalie Mercer's marriage and professional success. I convinced myself that Julian Mercer and I were better suited, and that, if the marriage ended, he would eventually see me differently. When I read those sentences, I felt no victory. Only exhaustion. Paige had reduced years of friendship to resentment. I remembered sleepovers, school dances, bad apartments, my bakery opening, my wedding morning. Were all those memories false? Dr. Cole told me not to rewrite my entire past because of Paige's final betrayal. She may have loved you once, she said. People can carry love and envy together. The existence of one does not erase the danger of the other. That was difficult to accept. I wanted Paige to have always been a villain, because villains were easier to remove. A friend who had once loved me and later chose to destroy me was harder to understand. Julian returned fully to his hospital role after the forensic report and Paige's admission were reviewed. The hospital issued a public statement confirming he had been the victim of electronic impersonation. The medical blog corrected its article. Most people moved on quickly. We did not. Public correction could not erase private humiliation. Julian became more careful with devices. He changed every password, enabled security keys, and stopped handing his phone to anyone. I became more careful with fear. When a thought frightened me, I said it aloud before it became a private certainty. One evening, Julian came home late without calling. For 20 minutes, my mind returned to the old messages. Hotel. Perfume. Lies. Then I remembered our rules. When he walked in, I did not accuse him. I said, "You are 40 minutes late, and I am having a bad reaction. I need to know what happened." He set down his bag immediately. A patient's father fainted after a consultation. I stayed until the emergency team cleared him. My phone died. I should have used the desk phone. He showed no irritation. He did not tell me I was unreasonable. He charged his phone and showed me the hospital call log without being asked. "You do not have to prove every delay," I said. "I know, tonight I want to." That distinction mattered. Evidence offered freely was different from surveillance demanded by fear. 5 months after the truth came out, I moved home permanently. We celebrated by eating takeout on the living room floor because neither of us wanted a formal dinner. The house felt familiar and changed. We removed the spare key from its old hiding place. We repainted the bedroom. We donated the furniture from the guest room and turned it into a reading room. Small decisions helped reclaim spaces Paige had entered through deception. The bakery also changed. I promoted Rosa to operations manager so I could stop working 70-hour weeks. I had used ambition as proof that I could survive without anyone. Survival was no longer the only goal. Julian reduced committee work at the hospital. He could not control emergencies, but he could stop volunteering for every responsibility. We started Tuesday dinners again. No phones. No cancellations, unless a patient needed him or a bakery oven caught fire. One Tuesday, Julian placed a small box beside my plate. I looked at him suspiciously. "This is not an apology gift," he said. "Good, we banned those." "It is not jewelry." Inside was a brass key. What does it open? The storefront, next to the Cambridge bakery. I stared at him. You rented it. No, you did, last week. You signed the lease. Then why do you have the key? He smiled. Rosa gave it to me. She said you planned to turn it into a teaching kitchen. I had mentioned the idea, but had not announced it. I thought we could paint it together on Sunday, he said. The gift was not the key. It was time. He was offering me a day that belonged to us. I closed my hand around the brass. Sunday, I agreed. We painted the room pale blue. By evening, there were streaks on the ceiling, paint on Julian's hair, and laughter in a place built for a future we had almost lost. Chapter 11. 1 year after I found the messages, Julian and I returned to the hotel ballroom where we had met. The hospital was holding its annual fundraiser. This time, Bluebird and Rye provided the desserts, but I did not spend the evening hiding in the kitchen. Rosa handled the staff. I wore a dark green dress and shoes that were completely unsuitable for carrying cake. Julian stood beside me, near the dessert table. He looked at the chocolate tarts. Are these guarded? He asked. I smiled. From children, no. From surgeons, absolutely. Still discriminatory. Still supported by evidence. He laughed. For a second, we were back at the beginning. Then his expression softened. Are you okay being here? The previous years, Gayla lived in both of us. Paige holding his unlocked phone. A hidden app. A linked computer. The first step in a plan neither of us saw. I looked around the ballroom. I am okay, I said. It is a room, she does not get to own it. Julian offered his hand. I took it. During dinner, the hospital honored the team that had expanded cardiac services for children from rural communities. Julian gave a short speech. He did not mention what had happened. He spoke about trust in medicine. Families place the most precious part of their lives in our hands, he said. Expertise matters, technology matters, but trust is not created by authority. It is created by transparency, humility, and the willingness to answer difficult questions. His eyes found mine. The words belonged to the room. They also belonged to us. After the gala, we walked through Boston Public Garden. The night was cold. The paths were nearly empty. Julian stopped near the footbridge. I brought something, he said. Please do not tell me it is another key. No. He removed a folded paper from his coat. What is that? The letter I wrote after you left. I stared at him. You never sent it. Marcus told me not to contact you directly. Then, when we started speaking again, the letter felt too raw. Why bring it now? Because I do not want hidden things between us, even harmless ones. He handed it to me. I unfolded the paper. The writing was uneven, unlike Julian's usual precise hand. Natalie, I do not know what you saw. I only know you looked at me as if I had become someone else. I am terrified that whatever happened will speak louder than every day we live together. I am not asking you to trust me blindly. I am asking you to remember that I have never wanted a life that did not include you. I stopped reading because tears covered the words. I am sorry, I whispered. Julian touched my cheek. We agreed you do not have to apologize forever. I know. Then do not. I folded the letter carefully. I want to keep it. Okay. We stood beneath the bare trees, while city lights reflected on the water. Do you ever wish I had confronted you that night? I asked. Yes. His honesty did not hurt anymore. Do you ever wish you had never trusted Paige with your phone? Every day for a while, now less often. Do you wish we could erase it? He thought before answering. I wish you never felt that pain. I wish I never saw you afraid of me, but I do not want to erase what we learned about how to speak to each other. I understood. We would never call the lie a gift. Pain did not become valuable simply because people survived it. But survival could create knowledge. I had learned that trust was not the absence of questions. It was the freedom to ask them. Julian had learned that calm silence could feel like distance, even when he meant it as stability. We had learned that marriage was not protected by knowing someone once. It was protected by continuing to know them. The following spring, we held a small gathering in the teaching kitchen beside the Cambridge bakery. My mother came, Rebecca came with her husband. Rosa brought flowers and pretended she had not cried while arranging them. There was no formal ceremony. No officiant. No photographers. Julian and I stood beside a flower-covered work table and read new promises to each other. His promise was simple. I will answer hard questions with truth. I will not confuse love with certainty. I will keep choosing you when choosing requires work. Mine was harder to say. I will bring my fear to you before I let it become a verdict. I will not ask you to pay forever for a crime you did not commit. I will keep choosing you with open eyes. Then I placed a small cake on the table. Chocolate, of course. My mother laughed. Julian kissed me. Our marriage did not return to what it had been before Paige's lie. It became something more deliberate, less innocent, more honest. Paige had tried to prove that trust made me foolish. She was wrong. Blindness would have been foolish. Refusing evidence would have been foolish. But listening, when the evidence changed, was not weakness. Admitting I had been deceived was not weakness. Letting Julian prove the truth was not weakness. And choosing to love him again was not forgetting what happened. It was remembering exactly what happened and refusing to let a lie write the ending. Some marriages end because the truth is unbearable. Ours survived because the truth finally had room to speak.